Minishoot Adventures on PC. This is a laptop test. It's my Core i3 laptop. 3 gigahertz. 2 cores, 4 threads, 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. It plays Control. It plays Arkham City at 55-ish frames a second at Super VGA resolutions. What's the other game? Yeah, it plays Tales of Arise at 60 frames a second at 30 to 50 frames a second at super VGA resolutions. So in other words, this is a reasonably capable laptop that should be able to play all my old games. It plays a bunch of Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games. We're going to test more of those later. This is a more conventional demo. Like it's an indie game with an not particularly challenging package of, visual features. So we'll start a new game. This is a demo that I completed on my desktop several weeks ago. So I know it runs well there. I just wanted to see if I could get a game like this to run. Faster enemies and faster bullets, which is a good stress test for a laptop like this. I have the VSync turned on, so no complaints there. But the thing that I care most about is, can I perform some of the trickier maneuvers in this game without having to worry about, frame rates. You won't be able to see a frame rate counter on this video because I'm playing outside of Steam. This is a demo that you can download from Steam, but when you run the executable, it does not. If you run the executable from the Minishoot demo folder where it's installed, you don't need to run Steam in order to run this game. Which means that if you're able to copy it onto another computer that doesn't have Steam, you're able to run the game anyway. If you can't get online, if you're running it on a computer that has Steam but you can't get online, you're still able to play the game. So again, for people who like people like me, I have a little. It's not a Switchblade. It's like a little USB drive that's full of DRM-free video games that I can use for testing purposes. Because if you want to test multiple laptops, you don't want to have to keep doing Steam authentications every time you break out a new laptop. So the point is, I have a couple of demos that I can run that don't require Steam. Well, not dead. And I can't shoot yet, so I'm going to have to dodge. I'm going to have to bob and weave. Controls are pretty tight in this game, so you can do lots of fancy stuff if you need to. So far, this game seems to be holding 60 frames a second, so no complaints. Can't go that way. You can hit the button, though. So we'll play this game for about 15 minutes and just see how the performance is during that run. We'll get into a couple of boss fights along the way, so we'll see how the performance holds up. So far, we're doing fine. I tried playing this game at a VGA resolution and it wasn't cooperating because I want to say it's a widescreen video game. So if you try to play it like, say, 1024 by 768, a super VGA resolution, I think that's super VGA. It's super VGA or EVGA. But if you play at that resolution, the game just letterboxes everything, which isn't bad. You just have to know going in. That's how the game operates. I think we're starting to see that era now where games don't even play in square aspect ratios anymore. But if you're playing games like, Arkham City and Skyrim, square aspect ratios are perfectly reasonable ways to claw a little bit more performance out of a low powered hardware. Like I was playing Skyrim on a laptop with VGA resolutions, and the game was still parsable. But then remember, that was a game that came out in 2011. Like that game was made for the PlayStation 3. So a lot of people still owned, fatback CRTs that were traditional 4:3 aspect ratio screens back then. So not unreasonable to play a game like Skyrim at that 4:3 aspect ratio. Although one would argue that the game works best when it's immersive and you're more immersed when you're playing on a widescreen set. That was a one-way ramp. Yep, can't go back. Is there a map? There is. I thought there was a map. It just hasn't been unlocked. We don't have to worry about it. There's only so many ways to go at this point in the game. But again, I like the idea of games like this, games that run well on laptops. I'll pull out one of my old dual core, see if it runs. Although I want to say this game might require Windows 10. I know Steam itself, the Steam client requires Windows 10. but obviously most of the games in Steam don't. So like your Arkham Cities and your Arkham Cities and your Skyrims, you know, the games that came out before the games that were released in the Windows 7 era. And yeah, apparently you can run Arkham City without Steam. I was supposed to double check that because apparently you can run it without the apparently you can run it without the Steam launcher. You just need a command line. Which again works for people like me if I want to do some additional testing on laptops and computers that don't have Steam installed yet. Let's see. Manual, orient your ship towards automatically aims and shoots an enemy. Let's not do that. We'll do manual for now. But I like those accessibility features. So that's good to know. And collect these red crystals so we can fill up our super crystal on the top left-hand corner of the screen. And I believe when that crystal is completely filled, you can level up. What are my other options here? V-Sync's on. Like I said, I think we're holding 55, if not 60. So I think we'll be fine. This game must have been made in Europe because you have the frame rate limiter goes down to 50, but no lower, which I think is whoops. Oh, I hit the wrong. I hit start and I was in the middle of leveling up. Let me check on something. There's your accessibility features. But if you want to play it otherwise, you can slow down the game speed. That's cool. Give yourself invincibility and unlimited energy. Wow. Eh, again, that's sweet. Some people just want to play a video game. I mean, look, like if your grandparents want to play this game because they grew up, if your grandparents grew up playing Robotron, and they want to play this game, I think it's cool for them to be exposed to a game like this. Upgrade Minishoot. You can turn off these power ups off or on, which I do love. So if you don't have to commit to a particular power up if you don't want to. Slightly longer range. What happens if I turn it off? Press the Y button. Is there a map here? Y. Let's see. Fire rate. So I can turn that. You can downgrade with the X button, then upgrade with that button. So it gives me a few more pixels of length because if I make this longer, I'm able to shoot pretty much to the edge of that door. See that right here? I'm able to shoot right around to here basically. In fact, let's do a check. So can I hit that column from here if I extend the range of the fire? It's not a massive increase in range, if we're being honest. That's how far I can shoot now. So let's downgrade that. Whoops. Downgrade that and upgrade that. So I can shoot, I can touch the column from here. So that's how much extra distance I got. Okay. So we'll play it for a few more minutes and end the video. I want to at least get into one, like, legitimate boss fight. Well, I did get into a decent boss fight earlier. So I was able to see what happens when there was a bunch of activity on screen. So that works out in my favor. This is for healing, I think. Yeah, these white crystals are for healing. Are the black crystals just in the way? Is all this obsidian and ebony in the way? Is that what the problem is? Is that a metaphor? This completely apolitical game about anthropomorphic spaceships. Like twin, I guess it's like a Twin Bee vibe, right? Although I would argue that if this were like a Japanese game, they might lean a bit heavier into the anthropomorphic ships. They wouldn't make them Transformers necessarily, but I think they would do like a Twin Bee thing. Or what was that PC Engine game where you were playing like an anthropomorphic PC Engine? It was like a top-down shooter. I want to say I did play a bit of that game on this channel. I did. Again, this is laptop friendly. I might need to set up a separate channel just for laptop crap. Like basically stuff your laptop can play. Like for $300. Like if you don't want to buy a PlayStation 6 or a PlayStation 5, you can buy yourself a whole stonking computer. Yeah, it's like those Octas, whatever they're called, those mermen and Legend of Zelda. Same vibe. Which I always thought was cool. Supposed to be a button around here. I can't go across that yet. But there's a button right here I totally forgot to step on. So there we go. Again, completely, as I mentioned in my desktop playthrough of this demo, like completely unassuming visuals. You know, they do the job. You can see what needs to be seen. The dual stick shooting controls are interesting. They're tight. So you get the satisfaction of being able to circle strafe and do all this other stuff. Shoot while walking backwards. That's always great. Again, I've always liked the idea of games like Smash TV. I think this game like takes away all the overwhelming horde mode BS and makes it a bit more reasonable. So I appreciate that. It's the sort of thing that indie developers could do. You can make a game like this on your off time, I guess. That's what I mean. Like I can understand this being like a student project where it's like, but for me, my argument is, can you make a video game that like do you have the basic controls right? Because I mean, being able to jump doesn't really matter in this game. Being able to like calibrate the dual stick controls is extremely important in a game like this. Okay, we'll worry about him later. Okay, we're good. So I have my long range guns. That's what really matters, right? See if I can just circle around them. Yeah, we'll just do that. Not wet. Okay, this guy's gonna get in the way. Let's not let him get in the way. Whoops! That was stupid. Monumentally stupid. Ah, crap. Good thing we have cover. It's almost down. And again, they're probably using motion tweening to like rotate the characters, which is cool. And again, all these analog controls give the game a level of precision you couldn't really get in like a 20th century video game. Unless you had like a food fight like arcade stick that had like what? Did it have like 16 or 20 points of articulation? Like there was some weird. If you remember the food fight arcade game, apparently that cabinet had a fancy. There's my map. Apparently that arcade stick had a fancy. Had a lot of points of articulation. So it wasn't like 8 directions like most joysticks. It was like 20 or maybe 30. So it wasn't full analog control, but it was pretty close. I think these things are slow. So that would have made that game pretty interesting to play when it first came out, because having a digital joystick with that level of refinement would have been a big deal back then. Again, in the pre Mario 64 era, having that level of precision on a joystick was a big deal, I imagine. But I want to say Robotron only had 8 directions, and you would just kind of slide your character or strafe your character to get more precision. So when we save here, I think we did fine. So yeah, Minishoot Adventures runs on this laptop at 720p, is it? Yeah, 720p. Runs well. Nearly 60. So what we'll do is this is a 60 frames per second capture. So I can do a frame by frame analysis if I have to. I can just do the math. How many frames appear on the screen? We'll see how it goes. How many distinct frames appear? You might need some extra tricks, but I'm not going to do that. But if you're playing back the YouTube video, it might still make sense. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, performance is good for this laptop, so I can shut it down and delete it, and I can move this to my DRM-free USB drive for some additional testing on some other laptops. I bet my less powerful laptops, like my 4 GB laptops, you should be able to run this at VGA resolutions. We'll do a test on that, or super VGA resolutions at least. So again, I recorded this on an i3 3 GHz processor CPU, two cores, 4 threads, 8 GB of DDR4 RAM. Don't know the speed. Probably at least 1600, maybe 2100 megahertz. And again, it's an 11th generation iGPU for this Intel i3 chip that I'm using. So I'll do some more laptop testing while the heat is on here in DC in the Fallout 3 zone. and I'll see what other games my laptop can play. Hopefully, we'll get some Saints Row 4 in here later. What's the other big ones? Definitely some Saints Row 4, some Dragon's Dogma should probably run at 30 frames a second on this thing. Shadow Mordor might run at 30 frames a second, but we're cutting it close. But it should run on this thing. 30 frames a second for Shadow Mordor, I think, would be enough because that's what the console versions run at. Again, I want to see I call this a switch top because it runs games like Control. So if this laptop runs games that the Switch can't, then we're probably able to accomplish a lot more than I thought was possible. So that's going to be good. We'll see how it goes. This was a Plantronics headset for the commentary. The quad-core Celeron Windows 10 Education laptop is capturing this footage via the Vivitar USB dongle at 60 frames a second.